Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. You can head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X __ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy's Sports Ticket app or on 1430 AM if you're driving around that Indianapolis area. Thank you so much for tuning in. And here in about 20 minutes, we're going to have Zach Pereles from CBS Sports on the show. He was present at the Colts and Ravens joint practice yesterday. We're going to cover all of it. How did the quarterbacks look? The fight. What happened? That's really the thing that I'm most curious about. Richardson, how did he look? Daniel Jones, how did he look? I've heard so much positive stuff about Adonai Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, the second-round pick who plays receiver out of Texas last year. Apparently, he had an absolutely great day. We're going to hear it all from Zach. The defense, heard a little bit about the seventh-round pick, Hunter Wohler. He apparently had two interceptions. Didn't hear much about the defensive line. That's concerning. Chris Ballard is spouting more nonsense. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But we have to start with everything that happened yesterday. Apparently, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson both had good days against this Baltimore Ravens defense that is supposed to be nasty. Apparently, they were just dicing up Nate Wiggins time and time again. Because Nate Wiggins apparently couldn't guard A.D. Mitchell, which I think is awesome. I think that's hilarious. And it's a great thing. Depth is important, especially at the quarterback position. Because whether it's Daniel Jones, who starts week 1, or Anthony Richardson, who starts week 1, both of them have a history of getting hurt or not playing well and getting benched at some point during the season. Daniel Jones has had 1 year in his entire career where he played the full season. Anthony Richardson obviously has 0. But to be fair, he's only been in the league for 2 years. So it is a great thing that both guys are playing really well within the flow of the offense. And now, from everything that I've read, it seems, and I'm going to ask Zach Pereles about this at 10:20 when he comes on the show. Once again, he was at the practice yesterday. It seems like Anthony Richardson generated more big plays just in terms of pushing the ball down the field. I know he had like a 45-yard completion to, A.D. Mitchell and all that kind of stuff. So it seems like Anthony Richardson generated more big plays, which is what I think we've kind of come to expect after watching him for, the last 2 years. If the big play factor was going to be more of an Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones thing, then anyone who's watched both of them play can pretty reasonably come to this conclusion that it was going to be Anthony Richardson who generated more big passing plays through the air and also by using his legs. So while Anthony Richardson seemed to have generated more big plays, it seems like Daniel Jones just did what the offense needed to do. And that is such an important thing that Daniel Jones can just run the offense. Because, everyone's just like jumping to this conclusion that like it kind of has to be Anthony Richardson if they both, kind of continue to play well and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going to keep saying what I said yesterday to Bladen. Shane Steichen knows that he was a play away from winning this division 2 years ago when he had a quarterback in Gardner Minshew who could just run the offense, who could just do what was needed of him. And they're a swing pass away from winning 10 games and winning the AFC South. And that wasn't that long ago. It feels like it was. 2 years ago feels like quite a bit of time ago, but 2 years ago was really not that long. Like Shane Steichen is fully aware of his ability to potentially win this division if he just has a quarterback who can do what is asked of him. That is so, so important. And here's the other thing that's important about Daniel Jones, just being able to run the offense. Because Daniel Jones can just kind of step in, I think, to just about any offense in the NFL and do the bare minimum, It is requiring Anthony Richardson to earn the job. Like if the Colts had brought in, Trey Lance, there's a world where Trey Lance shows up and he can't just like run the basic offense. And then the Colts are like, I guess we have to go with the 4th overall pick. But that is not the case with Daniel Jones. He is making Anthony Richardson earn the job. Like Daniel Jones was never going to show up and be incapable of running the Colts offense and doing the bare minimum. Like if that was the case, then he wouldn't have been the quarterback in New York for the last 6 years. And because he's just capable of running the Colts offense, Anthony Richardson had to show up and not only be capable of running the Colts offense, because let's be honest, I think that if that was the level that both guys were at, the Colts would opt for Daniel Jones because he's just less risk averse than Anthony Richardson is. So now Anthony Richardson has to show up, not only be able to run the offense, but do a little bit more. And in everything that I read, and look, we're going to get a really good look at it Thursday night for the first time when Anthony Richardson is running the offense on national TV, NFL Network, 7:30. Like we're going to get a really good look at what he looks like. But everything that I've read seems like Daniel Jones is just kind of running the offense and doing the bare minimum of what needs to be done, while Anthony Richardson is doing that and a little bit more. And that's really what we've been looking for from Richardson. Can you run the offense and then just a couple times a game, do a little bit more? Throw a 300-pound defensive tackle off your back and then scamper for a first down. Hit Alec Pierce over the top for a 50-yard bomb. Just occasionally. We don't need it all the time. We just need it 2 or 3 times a game. And if he can give the Colts that, which, once again, it's one joint practice and some training camp practices. I'm not sitting here saying that this is going to happen. But if he can do that, then the Colts can win 9, maybe 10 games and have a shot to win this division. But he has to be able to do that. All right, if the Colts offense this year is Daniel Jones just running, the bare minimum of the offense, one read, he's not open, let me run now, and so on. Like, it's really hard to win playoff games that way. It is. So hopefully Anthony Richardson can continue to do what he's been doing. Once again, it seems like he had a pretty good day yesterday. Zach Pereles of CBS Sports is going to join the show here in about 10 minutes, and he's going to kind of give us the full details on how Richardson and Daniel Jones looked. If Anthony Richardson can just continue to find a way to do the easy things and hit the big plays, then he's going to be the guy for the Colts, not just this year, but going forward. And if he can be that guy, then he'll be a guy that the Colts can maybe win a playoff game with. It seems like that's what he's done throughout camp, and it seems like that's what he did once again yesterday against a Baltimore Ravens defense and a Baltimore Ravens secondary that is supposed to be pretty stout this year. Like this Ravens defense, I went through it yesterday. I'm sure there are some guys who didn't practice and all that kind of stuff, and that obviously matters. But like Malachi Starks was the best safety in this draft. Like he's going to be good. Kyle Hamilton's the best safety in the NFL. Jair Alexander is a pretty stout corner. Whenever he plays, he gets hurt a lot. Nate Wiggins was a high selection last year by the Ravens. Like there's a lot of talent on that Ravens defense. And, it's not like Anthony Richardson went out there and beat up on the Saints. He beat up on the Ravens. And same goes for Daniel Jones. So once again, I find it very, very encouraging that both Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson had really good days yesterday. And after practice, Shane Steichen, he went to the podium, as he does, and he officially announced who's going to start the first preseason game against the Baltimore Ravens tomorrow night.
Anthony will start on Thursday. The plan is for him to play about a quarter and a half and then get Daniel about a half a quarter. In a perfect world, that's how I want it to play out. And then the following week against Green Bay, Daniel will start, get about a quarter and a half, and then Anthony will play about a half quarter.
Shane Steichen, Colts head coach right there, telling you that Anthony Richardson will start tomorrow night against the Baltimore Ravens. And then in their next preseason game against the Green Bay Packers, Daniel Jones will start, Whoever starts the games will play about a quarter and a half, and then the other guy will come in and finish out the rest of the first half. That's what it sounds like. Now, I am of the opinion, I don't think it really matters that Anthony Richardson is going to start the first game, and he's going to play more in the first game. And, you know how it is. We got these Colts fanboys just overreacting like, oh, Anthony Richardson currently has the lead to be the starting quarterback because, he and Daniel Jones are going to play the exact same amount of time and, in these first two preseason games. But, hey, because he's starting the first one, it means he has the lead. No, that's not what it means. It just means that for some reason they want to see him against Baltimore as opposed to against Green Bay. And with that being said, it's also going to be Anthony Richardson against Baltimore's backups. This is something that needs to be remembered. If in a quarter and a half, Anthony Richardson's out there and he's ripping the football and he's like 17 or 20 for 220 yards, can't overreact to it. Because John Harbaugh said yesterday, or 2 days ago, that he's not playing his starters in that first preseason game. So for me, if Anthony Richardson looks average, that's not good. He needs to have a great day if he's going to be out there with the rest of the Colts starters and playing against a bunch of backups. Then, he needs to not just, play the game. He needs to look like the dude. He needs to look awesome tomorrow night when he's playing as the starter. Now, Anthony Richardson does have an opportunity tomorrow night to go out there, ball out, and put some real pressure on Daniel Jones. If Anthony Richardson wanders out there and let's say, in a quarter and a half, he throws the ball 14 times and he finishes the day or the night, I guess, because they're playing at 7:30 and he's 11 of 13 for 127 yards and a touchdown. And everything is crisp and the two incompletions, one was a throwaway because he got pressured and the other was, this receiver dropped a pass. Then Daniel Jones has to match that. And so there is an opportunity there to put a little bit of pressure on Daniel Jones in terms of winning the starting job. So I am very excited for tomorrow night. I also think that if Anthony Richardson plays great, then the court of public opinion matters. It just does. If Anthony Richardson looks great, then I think it's going to be tough for Daniel Jones to swing people in his direction because a great game from Anthony Richardson looks vastly different from a great game from Daniel Jones. A great game, they're not going to look the same. A great game from Anthony Richardson is like drag racing a muscle car. It's going to be loud and fast and flashy, and there's going to be big plays down the field, and he's going to get out of the pocket, and he's going to extend plays and maybe even take off on a couple of long quarterback runs, and to close the run, he's going to run over the safety, and there's going to be a lot of oohs and ahs and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be cool. Because when Anthony Richardson plays well, it looks cool. It just does. A great game from Daniel Jones is going to be like a Toyota Camry driving to work. Kind of boring, plain. He's going to complete all the passes that he should. It'll be a lot of throws that are 4 yards down the field and all that kind of stuff. But like a Toyota Camry, it gets the job done. It gets you to work, and the gas mileage on it is pretty good. That's what Daniel Jones is. Okay, he's going to do the job. Okay, if you ask him to, drag race somebody down the road, you're probably going to lose, but that's not always the job, So if Anthony Richardson has a big night tomorrow night, then watch out because the hype beast will be in full effect. And I hope he does. I hope he plays really well. And then I hope that when Daniel Jones comes in to play a little bit, I hope that he just kind of picks up where Anthony Richardson leaves off. Okay? I want big games from both guys because if they both play to their highest capability, I do think that Anthony Richardson will win the job just because, as I said, he can do a little bit more, right? To keep going with that analogy, I'd rather drag race in a muscle car than a Toyota Camry. And I like Toyota Camrys. My wife drives one. So it's just the simple reality of it. And I'm very excited to talk to Zach Pereles here in about 5 minutes about everything that he saw at the Colts and Ravens joint practice from yesterday. Okay, because a lot of reporting on the fight and A.D. Mitchell and so on. Zach Pereles was there. He's got a really nice piece on CBSSports.com kind of talking about everything that he saw at the practice if you want to go and check that out. But coming up here in about 4.5 minutes, the one and only Zach Pereles of CBS Sports.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, X, or that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Coming up in 6 days, we got the first annual Dan Dockett Shootout. I will be there beating any and all challengers in a nice little three-point shooting contest, so make sure you head over to IndySportsTicket.com to sign up for that. I am now joined by Zach Pereles of CBSSports.com. He was there yesterday at the Colts and Ravens joint practice. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Football keeps getting closer.
It does. We got preseason games. Tomorrow night, we're going to get a decent amount of Anthony Richardson. He's going to be the starter, and then a little bit of Daniel Jones as well. But I want to focus on yesterday first. I think the question everyone's dying to have an answer to is, how bad was the fight? Because I've seen multiple reports on it.
Yeah, it was a typical training camp fight. It was not that bad, I thought. It was Nate Wiggins comes flying in off the sidelines, and honestly, I thought it could have been a lot worse. But the teams got together and eventually separated without more fights breaking out. I always think when you see these, training camp fights, and they do seemingly happen, you're hoping that it's limited to 1 or 2 or 3 guys, and then it doesn't break out to even more. And I thought that after, that little first skirmish, it generally cooled off, but it certainly got the fans and the reporters and the players going.
That's good, though. Like, the intensity of those practices is a good thing. I think that's part of why you do them. I saw John Harbaugh afterwards saying that, we treated it like a game, and you can't really do that in a game. So they threw Nate Wiggins out. So from there, it seems like both Colts quarterbacks had a really good day. Who do you think had a better day, though, between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we can take away is that they play such different styles. Anthony Richardson, the thing that I was impressed with most is that when he pushed the ball downfield, he gave his guys chances, which last year you just saw way too many complete misses. He doesn't even give his guys a chance. So I will say, just from what you want to see from this offense, I just think Anthony Richardson does a little bit more. It was a little bit more just exciting, and what you're going to get with Daniel Jones. It's a lot of shorter stuff, and he was accurate, and he threw a couple really good passes, and he did a decent job in the 2-minute drill. It's interesting they both got a chance right at the end of practice. And Daniel Jones did a good job, got the ball out on time. I thought the offensive line held up really well in front of him. And then Anthony Richardson gets in there, and the offensive line kind of fell apart in front of him. So overall, I would say I think Anthony Richardson had the better day because he just brings a more versatile attack, obviously with the running, but also just taking shots downfield. So if you look at the numbers, maybe Daniel Jones, because he had a lot of these shorter, high percentage completions. But I really thought Anthony Richardson, in terms of putting together a fully fledged, well-rounded offense, with some deep shots in there, I thought that he was more impressive.
Joined by Zach Pereles of CBSSports.com. He's got an awesome article up on the Colts and Ravens joint practice yesterday. He was there. We're talking a little bit about the quarterback play. Well, you answered the next question that I had on just because 7 for 9 can look really, from what I've read, and I don't know if you tracked completions and all that kind of stuff. I think I read that Richardson was 7 of 9 in the 11 on 11, and Daniel Jones was 10 of 12 or something like that. But they can look so different because where are you throwing the ball? Are you living underneath? And I think that's kind of been the question about Daniel Jones. Is he just going to kind of be a little bit more of this check down artist? How did you think, and I don't know if you can tell this or not, I don't know how far away you are, was there any noticeable difference in how the offenses responded to one quarterback or the other?
Not necessarily, I didn't think. I thought, the big thing that stands out to me is, you mentioned, just the depth of target. You can see that when Daniel Jones is in there, there's not a whole lot threatening deep. And it's not only that he's not threatening deep. It's that the defense isn't threatened by the deep pass. So it just looks, I'd say that's kind of the bigger thing that I took away. I did think that the offensive line, going back to that 2-minute drill, like I thought even throughout the day, the offensive line did a nice job. It's just, you don't see not even the deep shots, but the intermediate shots. You see Anthony Richardson throw a few of those. He had a really good ball to Alec Pierce over the middle. He also had a not so great pass to a tight end that I couldn't really see who it was because you're trying to watch both fields and you couldn't really tell who it was, but I think it ended up being complete, but it was a ball that was low and the tight end had to go really low for it. So you see those inconsistencies, but when Daniel Jones is in there, it's like Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell to the sideline, Josh Downs. So it's just, you get two very different styles of quarterback. Daniel Jones just doesn't threaten the field vertically really at all.
Okay. That's kind of been my impression of him when he was in New York. Once again, joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports, who was at the Colts and Ravens joint practice yesterday. So even though it seems like Richardson had a pretty good day, it seems like the standout from the day was A.D. Mitchell. In your article, you said that he was, quote, on fire. What was the most impressive part about his day?
Yeah, I think he just you see the skills, especially in, these practices. John Harbaugh runs some of the longest training camp practices I think I've seen. And I was talking to some of the Indianapolis reporters as well, and they were shocked by how long it went. You get a lot of one-on-one work, and that's just what stands out to me is this guy is super talented. There was the one play I think has probably gotten the most talk was he was against Nate Wiggins, and I think he maybe beat Wiggins deep. It was close, and then he came back through Wiggins to catch the ball. So you're seeing the speed, you're seeing the ball tracking, you're seeing the ability to make tough catches, and that's all on one rep. So I just think the talent really shines through in these settings, in these practices, where you get a lot of one-on-ones and you get a lot of different reps, and the defense hasn't game planned for you for for a whole week or whatever. So you see so much talent. And I think the other thing is you see what the Colts want to have with this pass catching group. You see A.D. Mitchell just can work the sideline. He can win these 50-50 balls. Obviously, Michael Pittman's a guy who's really reliable in that short and really intermediate range. Alec Pierce can take the top off the defense. And I've loved Josh Downs. If he's healthy, I just absolutely love, these slot wide receivers who can threaten vertically, but also be really good once they get the ball in their hands. And then we got to see a little bit of Tyler Warren, especially in that 2-minute drill on a couple of different routes. So A.D. Mitchell, the talent has never, ever been a question, and you really see it in a setting like this.
Okay. So based on the social media buzz, which is never fully accurate, that's why we're having you on, it seemed like Lamar Jackson had a bit of a rough day. Did he have a rough day, and was that more so because of him or because of what the Colts defense was doing?
Yeah, I think that I thought that he was fine, to be honest. He did plenty of Lamar Jackson-esque stuff. The big thing in training camp is that you don't see him run the ball a ton because you don't get a whole lot of him tucking the ball and running, which is such a huge part of his game. He had some really nice throws. In 11-on-11, he threw a ball to Charlie Kolar right between the safety and the linebacker that was just perfect. But yeah, in the 2-minute drill, he got picked off. But again, that might have been one of those throws where Lamar Jackson's like, why would I tuck the ball and run for 6 yards when that's not a helpful rep in training camp? Let me see if I can make this throw. So, again, I think it's one of these things where you look at, if you're keeping track of the stats, whatever, maybe it wasn't his best day, but he's still Lamar Jackson. There was one play where he tucked it and ran, and you just see it's a different level of athlete. So I certainly wouldn't be too worried about it. I think that he was just fine.
So you joined by Zach Pereles of CBSSports.com. He was at the Ravens and Colts joint practice yesterday. So you mentioned Lamar Jackson just being a different level of athlete, like whenever he takes off and runs. Was this your first time seeing Richardson in person?
This was my first time seeing Richardson in person, and they didn't. Again, I think that they're trying to use some running plays for him. It was a little bit tough to tell because some of that was like in red zone where you don't really get to see him really open it up, and that Ravens defensive line did a good job there. But yeah, this was my first time seeing Richardson in person, and yeah, I mean, you see all the physical tools, and just, you know, there are points where you're standing and watching the Ravens offense and trying to peer over and see the Colts offense in between plays or whatever. And Anthony Richardson is literally impossible to miss.
Okay. Because that's what I was going to ask. Like, everyone who sees him is just like, dude, he just looks insanely different than everybody else. And so I think you answered that part of it pretty well there. I know he got hurt, but you mentioned Justin Wally's pass breakup. I guess he made a really good play while defending Rashad Bateman. But just overall, what'd you think of him? Because it kind of seems like he's going to be the Colts' other starting corner across from Charvarius Ward.
Yeah, thought he was good. You did not see, you know, the Ravens' big plays for the most part were chunk plays to the tight ends. There was one Derrick Henry run that would have been going for a long time. But yeah, in general, like I thought that the cornerbacks held up well. I know that it's a banged up secondary, but I thought that Wally, this was a really impressive play. You know, Rashad Bateman's a good player, a good deep threat, and Lamar Jackson gave him a chance, and Wally really just stride for stride, plays through the ball. Thought that it was really good, and obviously they're looking for guys to step up there. So, and from what I understand, he's had a pretty strong training camp as well.
From everything I've read, yes, it seems like he's been really good. They seem to really, really like him, which is awesome. It's great that they like him, but something that I find concerning is there's more discussion about him, and he was a third-round pick, than JT Tuimoloau. I didn't see much on the Colts defensive line aside from the coverage sack that I think Kwity Paye ended up getting. How'd their defensive line look?
Yeah, it's, you know, I think that first off, they're going against a really talented Ravens offensive line. Yeah, I thought that honestly both offensive lines probably won the day for the most part, except, you know, that late 2-minute drill with Richardson. I thought that, yeah, the Colts defensive line was okay. I didn't think that Derrick Henry really had a ton of wiggle room, but again, like Derrick Henry's a guy who wants to plow through guys, and you're not really getting that in training camp. Yeah, I didn't see a ton from the Colts defense. There was a really nice play. I'm looking through my notes here. Latu did a really good job reading a screen. But yeah, in general, I thought the Ravens offensive line kind of won that portion.
Joined by Zach Pereles of CBSSports.com. He's got an article up kind of recapping everything he saw at the Colts and Ravens joint practice yesterday. So, Zach, coming into the offseason, there was this kind of assumption that Jalen Carlisle was going to be the starting linebacker alongside Zaire Franklin for the Colts. And he has since been, it seems like, overtaken by Cameron McGrone, which when that happened, I think everyone was like, who is that? In your article, you mentioned that he looked good, but that he caught your eye, but it didn't really give too many specifics. What did he do to kind of make you be like, oh, like that guy looks good today?
Sure, yeah. Stacked up a couple runs, I thought, and just seemed to be like sideline to sideline all over the field. Like he was the guy in coverage on that Charlie Kolar catch that I mentioned over the middle. He was there. It was just a better ball from Lamar Jackson, a really good catch from Kolar. I thought that he just like fit well in the run. You really only saw, there was one play where the Colts defensive line kind of got wiped out, and Derrick Henry was barreling through the hole towards Cameron Bynum, who kind of made a business decision to let him keep barreling through, which was a smart decision. And I also saw him, honestly, McGrone, I saw him winning a couple of special teams reps pretty decisively. So I know that that's obviously not defense, but just his activity level. You know, when I'm going through my notes here, I feel like I had his number down more than pretty much everyone. You know, not everyone. I thought that Travis Ward had some good things. Nick Cross did some good things. But I think McGrone, in a setting where you're not really tackling and you're just trying to make sure your fits are good and this, that, and the other thing, I thought that he was active. He was where he needed to be. And I can't grade him on his tackling or every single thing, but in general, the activity level and just being in the right spot, I thought were kind of some strengths.
Hey, that's where it starts. You got to be in the right spot if you're going to make a play. So that's good. That's been an issue for the Colts the past couple of years. Guys haven't been where they've needed to be. Last guy that I want to cover here, Zach. So apparently Hunter Wohler had a really good day. I know he had 2 picks. Was he playing more linebacker or safety? Because I know he played safety at Wisconsin, but they talked about maybe playing him at linebacker some. What did his day kind of look like?
Yeah, I thought so. The 2 interceptions at the end, one, that was the one Lamar rolled out to his right, tried to throw it back across his body, and who knows if he tries to make that throw in a real game. But yeah, right place, right time, made the catch. And then the second one was probably a more impressive catch. It was Cooper Rush trying to fit a ball deep. It got tipped away. I couldn't really tell who tipped it away, but really laid out, Wohler did, for a really good catch. It was more safety I saw in those 11-on-11 drills, but really kind of moved all around. And if there's one guy who, if the Colts put together a highlight compilation, it'd be A.D. Mitchell and Hunter Wohler as the 2 standouts. So if you need those 2 guys to have good days, they certainly delivered.
Joined by Zach Pereles of CBS Sports. He's got an awesome article up kind of recapping everything you saw at the Ravens and Colts joint practice yesterday. Last thing for you, Zach, and I will let you go. How much does this matter? Because, people want to overreact to everything. How much does one good joint practice really mean?
Yeah, I think that it's good. And it's easy to say it's really important. It's easy to blow it off as nothing. I think that it's semi-important. I think if they show up and Richardson and Jones had both looked bad and the offensive line had gotten beaten up by a good defensive line, then you're like, oh, this isn't good. But in general, I think it's important. You see a lot of Anthony Richardson. He gets these reps. I always think he needs just the reps. And at some point, every rep is valuable, but at some point getting a rep against a new defense is really helpful. So when he hits, Alec Pierce, who beat, Jair Alexander on this big in route, that's a good thing. There's no doubting that that's a good thing. When you see these guys, remember, you've got to get this roster down to 53. So it's important to see a guy like Justin Wohler, step up and make some really good plays. Hunter Wohler. So yeah, I think it's important. I think it's a good building block. And I think that the Colts came in and did what they want to do. They showed off, Jonathan Taylor had some good runs. That's their identity, I think, this year. They showed off some good runs. They had some guys like Wohler and McGrone step up, and both their quarterbacks played well. All of those things are important. Now, am I going to sit here and say, wow, the Colts are ready to, be a playoff team or, be the level of the Ravens? No, but you want to see all of these things happen. And in general, I think everything that happened, or the most important things that happened on the field yesterday, were important and good steps forward. That's why they have these practices.
Okay. All right. I like it. Last thing for real here. I don't even know how to word this. I feel like there's some overreaction to the Colts going with Anthony Richardson starting this first preseason game, even though they said that Daniel Jones will start the second. Do you think let me just restart, Zach. I'm sorry. That was terrible.
All good.
Who do you think the Colts are going to have start week 1?
Richardson. I think it's got to be Richardson. I just think I was talking with some of the Indianapolis writers and TV guys, and there's just such a hard ceiling on Daniel Jones's abilities, and that's okay. Daniel Jones can be a backup and a spot starter, but Richardson just gives you so much more access to things, access to the playbook. I really think that, I thought Jonathan Taylor had some better runs when Richardson was in, because you have to respect Richardson as a runner so much more. I just think it's got to be Richardson. I just think, like, Daniel Jones's success was like, here's a curl route to Josh Downs, who then made a great turn and got upfield against Marlon Humphrey. But that's like their biggest play of the day, and it was still only an 8-yard throw. Richardson giving his guys chances, at least threatening the defense deep. I think it's his job to lose. Is it not great that he hasn't separated himself? No, but I still think he should be your starter, and I still think he just does more. I still believe in Shane Steichen's offense, and I think that there's just more variety, and you need that variety. So I think Anthony Richardson, week 1, I think, is your starter.
It's kind of what it seems like if he keeps playing it as well as he has been. Zach, thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That is Zach Pereles. You can go check him out on X at Zach_Pereles. He's got an awesome article up kind of recapping everything that he saw yesterday at that Colts and Ravens joint practice. You can get that over at cbssports.com. Like I said, it's really good. So go and check it out. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, there is one thing about Anthony Richardson that still needs to be discussed about him potentially, being the starting quarterback for the Colts once again to start this season. I'm going to tell you what that thing is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
package at noon. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Now, Colts, good day yesterday. Anthony Richardson apparently played pretty well and all that kind of stuff. It's great. But I can't help but wonder about this. I feel like this is something that we've kind of forgotten, and we've chalked it up to Anthony Richardson being a young dude. And yesterday, I was scrolling through X, and I saw this clip from the NFL Network. They were doing one of their talk shows, and some guy that I've never heard of, was explaining why the Colts should, or they have to start Anthony Richardson and all this kind of stuff. And then Manti Te'o steps in and is like, no, they don't have to do that because of this one thing. So here is this clip of this guy explaining why Anthony Richardson needs to be the starter. And then Manti Te'o stepping in saying, but what about this?
The leader of the band, it got to be AR, Anthony Richardson, just because of what his ability is. You look at this offense and what Shane Steichen does. This offense is designed to threaten you vertically, horizontally. He presents us all those problems. And as a coach, coaches need to coach. I said that 4 times. Coaches need to coach. Coach. And don't take the easy route and be like, okay, we're just going to put Daniel Jones because we know what he can do. We've seen this movie before. This is like Jurassic Park 3, right? We've seen 1 and 2. We see the third one. Okay, we know what's happening. We know what's going on. Sure, the T-Rex is going to come out, but give me something new. Give me the Indominus Rex, right? Give me Owen. Let's go out there, someone who can speak to Raptors. And I feel like with Anthony Richardson, what he can do, he's so effective. He's so explosive. And also, I think he's still top 5, one of the youngest quarterbacks in the entire NFL. Yeah, so let's not, we know what we're going to get. We put Daniel Jones out there. We've seen this story before. Let's not play it safe. Let's set the tone for the fans. Let's get Anthony Richardson rolling. Let's get him going.
No, well, he said it so flippant. He goes, gotta be.
I don't know. I mean, you talk about, we know what we're going to get from Daniel Jones. We also know what we're going to get from Anthony Richardson. And the thing about football is this, ladies and gentlemen, football is the greatest team sport. Why? Because my success on the team depends on you. My success depends as a quarterback on my own line blocking. My success depends on my running back really getting those extra yards. My success depends on my receivers catching the ball. Now, when I can't depend on you because you tap out on me in a game, in a critical game situation, I don't know as a teammate. We're talking about, Jamie, you said, how would it feel to be a QB in that room? I'm trying to think about how would it feel to be a teammate in that locker room when I witnessed my starting quarterback tap out in the middle of a game. I have never seen that happen ever. Well, matter of fact, I've seen it once, and it was on Remember the Titans when Petey tapped out of the game. That's the only time. And if you're looking at Daniel Jones isn't Ryan Gosling. He's not going to give him if Daniel Jones gets the starting position, he's not going to go up to the coach and say, hey, coach, I'm not doing well. Stick Anthony Richardson in. He's not going to do that, okay? So as a teammate, as somebody who's bled, sweat, and really went through some growth pains with you, for you to demonstrate that I can't count on you in certain situations, even if it's for one play on a third down. When I needed you the most, you were not there. I got to go with Daniel Jones because at least I know you're not going to tap out on me. And that's it.
Manti Te'o right there explaining why the Colts should go with Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson. And having trust in your teammates is incredibly important in any sport. I think it's important in the workplace as well. Like my Dan has to trust me to do my job, and Mike, my boss, has to trust me to do my job, and so on and so forth. Like it is so important, no matter what you're doing. Like you have to trust the people that you work with, and it is even more important in the NFL to have trust in your quarterback. And the tap out thing still matters. So this clip, I wouldn't say it went viral, but it was seen by a lot of people and a lot of Colts fans be like, it was one play. It happened like a year and a half ago. It one play. Let it go. You can't. You can't just let that go. Like, when you're the quarterback, everyone looks to you and how you behave, and it impacts everybody else. Like, there's a clip going around right now of Caleb Williams, and he's throwing a ball into a net, and he misses all three, and he misses the third one really badly, and he turns around and he storms off, and the body language is just bad. And you can't do that. Like, when you're the captain of the ship, the sailors can't see you panic. And the sailors definitely can't see you tap out and be like, I'm done. I need a breather. Sorry, guys. And look, I don't know who that first guy is, but he just sounds like everybody else. Play Anthony Richardson because he's talented. Play Anthony Richardson because you don't really know what you have, even though we've seen him play football for the last 2 years. Manti Te'o has an excellent point. When you quit on your teammates, they do not forget that, even if it's just for a play. And there's, people out there who are just going to be like, oh, but he's young. He was just young. He's just a young guy. He's just a young guy making a mistake. Fine. You're right. The dude is young. But that's not a good enough excuse for everybody. Mainly the guys that, you've been working your butt off with for, from the start of, August. Or no, July. From July all the way through February for some people. Yeah, that excuse of, he's just young. He's just a young fella. That's not a good enough excuse when you're being paid a lot of money to not just play quarterback, but to be the leader and the face of your team. Now, there's just one very simple question that could clear all of this up. Has he done enough since that moment where he tapped out to earn back the trust of his teammates? Now, that is a question that I can't answer. That's a question that only the guys in the Indianapolis Colts locker room can answer. And this isn't a Colts team that went out and let a whole bunch of players go and brought in a whole bunch of new guys. No. A lot of the guys that were on the team last year, they're back. They remember that tap out on, I think it was 3rd and 23, and they were in the red zone. You have to stay in there. And I think Manti Te'o makes an excellent point on can his teammates trust him? And once again, that is not a question that I can answer. The only guys who can answer it are the guys in that Colts locker room. And maybe him competing and working hard and doing the extra work in the playbook and doing all those things in this competition against Daniel Jones, maybe that's enough for these guys to be like, you know what? He's grown up. I don't think he's going to do it again. Let's see how it goes. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. I don't know the temperament of the guys in that locker room, but it is a question that continuously needs to be asked. Now, before we hit a break, IU, Indiana basketball, they are in Puerto Rico today playing a little bit of hoops. I think they're playing 3 or 4 games. I hope they crush all the teams that they play. I hope, they come back and they're like, we shot 78% from 3. Every shot that they got was wide open. They were running and knocking shots down and all that kind of stuff. That's what I hope to hear. Will we hear that? I don't know. Probably not. I don't know what we're going to hear, but there will be some propaganda. So-and-so played great. So-and-so needs to work, but I can really see a path to him being a really good player. And we're going to get all that here at some point. But I just hope that they look good because basketball season really isn't that far away. I mean, what, games start in November? No, games start in October. When is IU's first basketball game? Because they, like I said, November 6th. So we are 3 months away to the day for the first game of the Coach DeVries era here in Indiana. So very excited for all the potential that he's going to bring because apparently he's put together a pretty good team. We'll see, though. We'll see. As I said, they're in Puerto Rico today. Hopefully, they just crush everybody. Speaking of crushing people, apparently, A.D. Mitchell had a day yesterday, and that's cool. But it's really not that big of a deal. I'll tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. You can head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there and watch the show there, you can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. We are 6 days away from the first Dan Dockich three-point shootout, where you'll have the opportunity to compete against the best shooter in the state of Indiana, me, in a nice little three-point shootout. If you beat me, which you probably won't, you'll have a chance to win some prizes. So good luck. You better start practicing, because your boy has been practicing. I'm finna go crazy next week on Tuesday, noon to 3 at the Indiana Fairgrounds. Now, speaking of going crazy, Adonai Mitchell. Apparently he did yesterday, saw some Colts guys be like, oh, I think A.D. Mitchell got his swagger back. Okay. He's had a couple good training camp practices. Am I the only one who remembers what happened last year? Oh, guys, A.D. Mitchell, this rookie out of Texas, oh my gosh, he looks so freaking good. Like, he's just an absolute stud. Like, he's going to take the league by storm. He's going to beat out Alec Pierce. Oh, no. A.D. Mitchell. Oh, my goodness. All the clips in training camp. He's so amazing. That's what we heard all year last year. Okay? Now, look, I'm glad that A.D. Mitchell's having another good training camp, because training camp is an important thing. You're able to come back and be like, hey, coaches, this is what I worked on. This is how I got better, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's great. It's important. I'm glad that he's having a good training camp. Now, I've been very much on the record of the Anthony Richardson stuff. Like, I'll believe it when I really see it. Simple as that. Like when I see Anthony Richardson go out there and play really well, then, okay, I will believe it when I see it. A.D. Mitchell, I'm not, quite as far up that river with Mitchell, but like there's a little bit to it. So I would like to see him catch the football when he knows that he is at risk of getting crushed. I'd like to see him catch the football in one of the 17 games that actually matter this year. Okay? And like, seriously, like I would, because when I look at these Colts receivers, they have nothing but specialists. Like, they all just do one thing well. Michael Pittman Jr., like he kind of commands the middle of the field, and he can do some stuff underneath. Alec Pierce, he's really just he's just going to run deep and make plays down the field. Josh Downs, he's going to line up in the slot, and he can stretch the field because he's really fast, but a lot of his work comes underneath. And Mitchell, he's not like that. He's a combination of all three of these receivers that the Colts have. Josh Downs is an excellent route runner. So is Adonai Mitchell. Michael Pittman Jr. separates at the top of routes, and he just kind of owns the middle part of the field, more of a possession guy. Adonai Mitchell does the exact same thing. He was amongst the leaders in the NFL and the amount of separation he could create when running routes. Alec Pierce is a deep threat who can make contested catches with his size. A.D. Mitchell can do those things as well. And when you look at the best receivers in the NFL, and before I run through this, let me preface this by saying, I'm not saying that Adonai Mitchell's going to be one of the best receivers in the NFL. Let me say that first. But when you look at the best receivers in the NFL, Puka Nacua is an absolute beast over the middle of the field. I mean, he's big and he's strong. He's not super quick, but because he's so strong, he's able to kind of create some separation. He's a pretty physical route runner. And because he's so physical and so strong, he's a really good contested catch guy. He's also really good after the catch. Does multiple things well. Puka Nacua. After the catch, he's great. He's a contested catch guy, and he just kind of owns the middle of the field. He can also run by you. Jamar Chase can run by guys. I mean, just blazing fast. Just, see ya. He's great with contested catches. On the shallow routes, he just kind of runs away from corners because he's so fast. And then you could argue that Jamar Chase is the best after the catch receiver in the NFL. Like, he just turns into a running back, and he's stiff arming dudes and juking dudes and running over guys. It's really impressive. He does multiple things at an elite level. Justin Jefferson is a pristine route runner. Pristine. Like, every time he's getting in and out of, every time he gets out of a break, it's just like you look up and like the corner's like off the screen. That's a little hyperbolic, but you get what I'm saying. He makes catches because he's big and he's long, right? He's not blazing fast, but like you still have to respect the idea that he can run by you. Tyreek Hill, speed guy who runs great routes. Like, you know, peak Tyreek Hill was both the fastest and quickest player in the NFL. And because of that, like he could run routes over any part of the field. Adonai Mitchell is the only guy on this Colts roster who plays receiver, who can do multiple of those things. Beat you deep, make contested catches, separate at the top of routes, run a little bit after the catch, which is something that we haven't really gotten to see from him because he hasn't caught the football. And I feel like there's a little bit of Anthony Richardson stuff with A.D. Mitchell in terms of how we view him. We're not looking at the lack of production that he gave us in his rookie season. We're not paying attention to the interview after the Broncos game. I did my job. I threw an interception that the Broncos returned for a touchdown. That was my job on that play. Like there's just a little bit of immaturity there. At least there was last year. And in addition to that, I think people are really caught up in the what could he be. Like that's the thing. You hear everyone who kind of goes to bat for Anthony Richardson saying that he should be the starting quarterback. It's not about reality. It's about fantasy world. Well, what could he be? I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of the point. And so at some point, we have to live in reality. And the reality is, as talented as A.D. Mitchell is, he's got to like actually do it on the field in order for me to be like, yeah, that's the guy for the Colts. The talent's there. He could be awesome, but he could also be out of the league in the next 3 years. I don't think that would be surprising either with where he's at right now coming off of that rookie season. Now, in addition to the offense yesterday having a pretty good day against the Baltimore Ravens, it seems like the defense played pretty well. On top of that, Hunter Wohler ended up kind of being the guy that everyone's talking about. 7th round pick, played safety at Wisconsin. Talks about playing him at linebacker a little bit. He had not one, but 2 interceptions yesterday. Okay, so that's good. Depth, that's something that the Colts desperately need. So if he can provide a little bit of that, maybe he plays, linebacker in when the Colts are running their 2-minute defense. Like, that would be cool. Nick Cross apparently made some really nice plays in coverage. That's good. I thought his strength last year was his ability to kind of come down from that strong safety spot and fill the run and kind of help with tackles. He was 7th in the NFL last year in solo tackles. So that's, a good thing. Like, that's a guy who tackles well in space. The question for him has been coverage. And it seems like he had a pretty good day in coverage yesterday. Justin Wally seems like he held up at corner against a pretty explosive Ravens offense. I know he hurt his knee. They had to take him off the field at one point, but hopefully he can kind of secure that cornerback number 2 slot, because we're still waiting to hear who that guy is going to be for the Colts. So hopefully, those kind of things start to get ironed out as the preseason heats up tomorrow night when the Colts play against the Ravens at 7:30. Didn't hear many great things about the Colts defensive line. They had a coverage sack. That's all that we really heard. Zach Pereles said that, Leatu Latu read a screen really well. Like, that's cool. But I would like to hear, Leatu Latu had 4 sacks and was unblockable. That I would have preferred to have heard that. That might just be me though. So see, I'm not convinced that this Colts defensive line is going to be very good, with the exceptions of Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner. And I just think it's a lot to put on those 2 guys who are both in their 30s now. So one of those edge rushers they got to figure it out here at some point, or else it's going to be a long season for the Indianapolis Colts. And it's been a long 9 years. with Chris Ballard. And there's a clip. He did some TV interview thing, and they asked him about the playoff drought. And every time he talks about the playoff drought, it just sickens me. Here is Chris Ballard talking about, the Colts 4-year playoff drought.
Chris, I hate to bring up these numbers, but I know you probably have them up on a board. Last division title, 2014. Last playoff appearance, 2020. Last playoff win, 2018. Mm-hmm. What do those numbers mean to you, and how does that affect the way you do things?
Well, I just told the group in there, it's the first time I've ever been that long. And then we've had, in 21 and 23, we got destiny in our hands and we didn't finish it. And even last year, last 4 or 5 games of the season, we were really last 3 games, we're right in the mix. And if we do what we're supposed to do, we're going to be in the mix. So that it's frustrating. And our city deserves better. They deserve a playoff team that they can root for.
What has to happen for that to change? I know you said finishing strong. Yeah. It's paramount.
Like I've always said, that the team that blocks and tackles and doesn't turn the ball over usually gives themselves a pretty good chance to win. It's not a hard game. It's not. Still,
Chris Ballard talking right there about the playoff drought, and I can't. I can't. We should be in the mix if we just do what we're supposed to do. We've been in the mix. We just haven't really finished. Here's the issue with that. The other team is also trying to do what they're supposed to do. And usually the team with better players and better, coaches and all that kind of stuff. Usually those are the teams that actually do what they're supposed to do. Usually the better team does a better job at doing their jobs, and then they win the game, and then they make the playoffs. What bothers me about Chris Ballard, every time he talks about the playoff drought, he acts as if those Colts teams were good. Seriously. He's like, we were close. We were in the mix, and we're going to be in the mix again this year, and all that kind of stuff. Everyone's in the mix every year because half of the league makes the playoffs. In a league where pretty much half the NFL, 14 of 32 teams, so not quite half, but in a league where almost half of the league makes the playoffs, of course you're going to be in the mix, unless you're the Cleveland Browns and you go 5-12 every year. Like, the only way you're not in the mix is when you're truly, truly terrible. If you're average, then you're in the mix. That doesn't mean that you built a good football team. It means that you built a an average team. That's what the Colts have been time and time again. It's like, oh, well, if they could just do their jobs and finish. Well, maybe if the roster was a little bit better, then maybe they would do their jobs and they would finish. Okay? Like this idea that the Colts have had good football teams for the last, 4 years when they've missed the playoffs. I guess 3 of the 4, because one of the years they were so bad that they had the 4th overall pick. Like that idea to me is just nonsense. Good football teams don't win 8 or 9 games. Okay? Like there are years now, because 14 teams make the playoffs, that a team will make the playoffs. Like, is that team even any good? Is that team even good? And then they play their first round matchup. Like the Broncos, sure, they won 10 games last year, but the Bills were a legitimately good football team, and they played the Broncos and they beat them 31-7. It's like, maybe the Broncos weren't that good. And you couldn't even make the playoffs. It is the most frustrating thing about Chris Ballard. There's just unwillingness to be like, hey, you know what? We weren't good last year. I just wish that he would say it. Because in a league where 14 of the 32 teams make the playoffs, good teams don't miss the playoffs. Good teams go 11-6, and they grab a 5 seed, and then, they play a really tough wild card round game against the worst team that won their division. That's what good football teams do. Great ones grab the 1 or the 2 seed, and they look up and they're in the NFC or AFC championship game. Just this whole, we should be in the mix. We were in the mix. Congratulations. You were once again on the outside looking in. And since when is that the standard? Like seriously, we just want to be in the mix. If we just do what we're supposed to, then we'll be in the mix. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that was the goal. I mean, it must be because he's been here for the last decade now. With just another year of, hey, we're going to look up and the Colts are going to be in the hunt, and they're going to be in the mix. All that needs to happen is for them to beat the Broncos, and the Chiefs need to tie with the Chargers in week 18, and the Bengals have to lose by 24 points to the Raiders in week 17, because then the scoring, all these things have to happen. And then we're like, hey, they were in the mix. They were so close. Let's run it back. Let's run it back, even though the last 3 times that we've ran it back, we've missed the playoffs. But hey, 4th time's the charm. That's the saying, I think. It's just ridiculous. The fact that he's just like, we're close, and being close is good enough. No, it's not. How about you build like a really good football team that goes like 12-5? And then the playoffs start, and we're sitting back, and we get the FanDuel or DraftKings or Bet365, whatever you like to use. You get that notification of like, hey, the lines are out for Wild Card Weekend, and you open it up, and the Colts are like 6.5-point favorites. Like, how about we build a football team like that? Forget in the mix. How about we like rest players in Week 18 because we're locked into the playoffs? How about that? That sounds way better than, if we just do what we're supposed to do, and if we just finish games, then we'll sneak into the playoffs and get obliterated in the first round. Pass on that. And the fact that has become the standard here in Indianapolis when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts, it's just sad. Because I remember growing up in Nashville, or just south of Nashville, and watching the Colts. My older brother was a Colts fan because of Manning, and every week, I would go to school with all these Titan fans, and I wasn't a Titans fan, wasn't really a Colts fan either, and they'd all just come to school, it'd be like Friday, like, hey guys, like, what are you doing this weekend, and it's like, oh, like we're gonna, I have Johnny has a baseball game on Saturday, and then Johnny's like, oh, like I'm gonna watch the Titans lose to the Colts. Like that was it. Like that was how it felt. It was like death is coming to Nashville when the Colts showed up because Titans fans just knew, like, yeah, we're not gonna beat Peyton Manning. Like that's not gonna happen. And like that's just gone. Now, Titans fans, they're sitting there and they're like, ooh, play the Colts in week 5? Cam Ward might be able to win that game. Like that's just gone. And it's sad. It's frustrating. Because the standards here in Indianapolis when it comes to the Colts have been lowered so greatly. Now, things could be raised a little bit if Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones kind of figures it out, and that is the hope for the Colts this next season. And I can't wait to kind of see how Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, whoever wins that starting job, it's going to be interesting to see how they perform. We're going to get our first live look at them Thursday night. Anthony Richardson is going to start the game tomorrow night against the Ravens. Going to be really interested to kind of see how he looks, because apparently he looks a lot better than what he did last year. And can't wait. My thoughts on Shane Steichen going with Anthony Richardson in this first preseason game when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
it may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Tickets, head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, if you're around the Indianapolis area, 1430 a.m., just flip the little dial over there. Before I talk about the quarterback performances yesterday against the Ravens and Anthony Richardson starting tomorrow night, Ridger over in the YouTube chat, once again, Indy Sports Ticket, head over there and subscribe. Ridger chimed in and said that it's a fantasy world, but do you trade next year's number one, by number one he means first-round pick, for Parsons? Ridger says, no way. I absolutely would make that trade in less than a second. It's a really simple question. Are the Colts going to draft a player as good as Micah Parsons is next year with that first-round pick? Probably not, especially if Chris Ballard is still here. So the Colts just need good players, especially right now. Like if you're Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen and you're looking around, it's kind of like, yeah, like we should probably win something this year. What do we not have? A dominant pass rusher. There he is right there. Give up this year's first-round pick and next year's. Seriously, I would give up two for the guy. Two guys and a good player for Micah Parsons. Like two guys and Leatu Latu for Micah Parsons. So I think it's really, really simple. Go and get a really, really good player in Micah Parsons. Now, speaking of quarterbacks, because Ross Campbell made a really good point. He said that he would do it, but the Colts need a quarterback, so maybe you want to hold on to that first-round pick. It's a very, very valid point. But the quarterback performances against the Ravens, Ross, I don't know if you've heard, but Anthony Richardson's the guy now. I mean, like Anthony Richardson's going to save the day. He's going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts for the next 15 years, and the Colts are going to win at least one Super Bowl. That's what's going to happen. I don't know if you heard about that or not. And I'm saying all this because he apparently had another great day against the Ravens. Another great practice for Anthony Richardson. Now, he wasn't the only one who played well. Apparently, both he and Daniel Jones played well. It's a great thing. That is an outstanding thing because the Colts need depth at quarterback, whether it's Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones making the start week 1 against the Miami Dolphins. Both guys have a history of getting hurt. It's the reality of it. Anthony Richardson hasn't played a full season once. Daniel Jones is, in his 6 years in the NFL, he's only played a full season once. So I think that it is a great thing that both Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson are practicing and playing really well so far in training camp. Now, it seems like Anthony Richardson continues to generate more big, explosive plays. And Daniel Jones just kind of does what he needs to do in order for the offense to run properly, which is kind of nice because the offense didn't do that last year, whether it was Joe Flacco or Anthony Richardson playing quarterback. And this is one of the nice things about Daniel Jones. Okay. He is making Anthony Richardson earn the job. Like Daniel Jones wasn't going to show up and play so poorly that the Colts were like, guess we got to go with Anthony Richardson. Like that just wasn't going to happen. Daniel Jones, he's been in the NFL for 6 years. He's a pro, right? He's been playing for Brian Dable, who's a really smart offensive coach. He's shown up here, and like he was going to be capable of running the Colts offense. And this, to me, is still the most underappreciated or underused talking point when arguing for Daniel Jones. 2 years ago, we saw Shane Steichen almost win this division with Gardner Minshew just running the offense. Say, hey, Gardner, can you just run the offense? Can you just hit the first guy that's open? If you can do that, then I think we're going to be fine. And, there a Tyler Goodson drop pass or a Gardner Minshew overthrow, whatever you want to call it, away from winning the division. And so Shane Steichen knows that he can win games with this offense, with a quarterback who can just do the bare minimum. And that is what Daniel Jones He's done. He's shown up and he's run the offense. The issue that I have with that is I don't just want to make the playoffs. Like I don't want to go 10-7 and sneak in, because we have a tiebreaker over some other team because we beat a team that they didn't. And like, I don't want that. Like I want the Colts to arrive and be like, hey, watch out for them. We know that they're, a 4 seed or whatever, but they've got like the fourth best odds to win the Super Bowl. Like that's what I want. And Daniel Jones, who can come in and run the offense just fine, like that's not who he is. It's just not. Whereas with Anthony Richardson, he can be that. And from just everything we've read, talking to Zach Pereles earlier, it seems like Anthony Richardson has found a way to consistently do the easy things and still hit the big plays. And that's really all that the Colts need from him. They need him to show up, run the offense as normal, run the offense as normal, and then occasionally do something cool. And then occasionally throw a defensive tackle off his back and then scamper for a first down late in the second half when the Colts are trying to get into field goal range before the quarter ends. Or they need him to, once a game hit Alec Pierce on like a 50-yard big play to put him, in the red zone. Like that's what they need. They need just consistent, do the bare minimum with these occasional droplets of Anthony Richardson magic. That's what they need, and it seems like that's what he's doing so far in these training camps. It seems like that's what he did yesterday. So if he can continue to do that, then he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. And he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts tomorrow night. Here is Colts head coach Shane Steichen breaking the news that Anthony Richardson is going to be the starter.
Anthony will start on Thursday. The plan is for him to play about a quarter and a half and then get Daniel about a half a quarter. In a perfect world, that's how I want it to play out. And then the following week against Green Bay, Daniel will start, get about a quarter and a half, and then Anthony will play about a half quarter.
Shane Steichen right there breaking down how they're going to split up the playing time for Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson going into these, not only the preseason game tomorrow night, but also the preseason game against the Packers, right? So Anthony Richardson, he'll start tomorrow night. He'll play about a quarter and a half, and then Daniel Jones will come in and play, the second half of the second quarter. And then against the Packers, it'll flip. Daniel Jones will start. He'll play a quarter and a half. And then in the final, 7.5 minutes of the second quarter, Anthony Richardson will come in and finish the quarter. Okay. Now, Colts fanboys, they're everywhere. And if you ask them, Anthony Richardson clearly has the lead in terms of who's going to be the starter because he's starting the first preseason game. Let's just completely and totally forget that, it's going to flip and Daniel Jones is going to take the majority of the snaps against the Packers. What I think this tells us is for some reason, they want to see Anthony Richardson play against the Ravens. And for some reason, they want to see Daniel Jones play against the Packers. That's really all that there is to it. I think it's a really simple thing because believe it or not, things can be simple. That is an option. And so I am, excited to see what Anthony Richardson looks like tomorrow night under the lights, right? Everyone watching, everyone paying attention because I think when people are selecting which preseason game they want to watch, like, the Colts are actually playing their starters. Let's watch them. Okay, so I don't think it matters that Anthony Richardson is going to play more in the first game and less in the second. I don't think it means that they're leaning Anthony Richardson as the starter because both guys have played well so far throughout training camp. Now, Anthony Richardson does have an opportunity to go out there, ball out for a quarter and a half, and put some real pressure on Daniel Jones. Now, Anthony Richardson isn't going to go out there and win the job with this one performance against the Ravens backups, which is important to be remembered. The Ravens are not playing their starters tomorrow night. So Anthony Richardson, he's not going to go out there and win the job. It's not going to happen, but he could lose it. Walks out there and he throws 3 interceptions and it just looks disorganized and clunky. Like that's a red flag. It is. And so I'm very intrigued to kind of see how he responds to this opportunity to go first and to be the first guy to get a nice little crack at it. And if he plays well, how does Daniel Jones look? Is he trying to do too much, which I don't think so. I think Daniel Jones does a really good job of just playing within himself. And I kind of hope Anthony Richardson plays well because the overreactions to it are going to be legendary. You know? Like, oh, give him the job now. He went 10 of 12 against the Ravens backups. Do you remember what happened last year? Played against the Bengals. And, like the first drive, he throws a really bad pick. And then, everyone's like, he can't play. He's terrible. And then the Colts get the ball back, and it's like 6 plays. They throw it on 5 of them. Anthony Richardson's on time, on target, and he hits A.D. Mitchell on a little drag route, and A.D. Mitchell dives for the end zone, and he scores. And then it's just like a pendulum. Like it just swings the other way. And everyone's like, oh, Anthony Richardson's a stud. He's going to be amazing. I find it all really funny. Watching Colts fans react to however Richardson and Daniel Jones play tomorrow night is going to be probably the highlight of my night. But what we're really looking for is a great game from Anthony Richardson tomorrow night, and then a great half of a quarter from Daniel Jones, and then the same thing against the Packers. Okay, now there is a difference, though, and you can tell. A great game from Anthony Richardson and a great game from Daniel Jones, they just aren't going to look the same. Like they're just not. Like a great game from Anthony Richardson is going to look like drag racing a muscle car. It's going to be loud and fast and flashy. You're going to be sitting on your couch, be like, oh wow, like that's impressive. There's going to be deep balls and long quarterback runs, and there's going to be moments where you're like, oh man, like how did he make that throw? And it's just going to be cool. Like when Anthony Richardson plays well, like it's cool. It just is. And a great game from Daniel Jones looks a little bit more like driving your Toyota Camry to work. Kind of boring. Maybe you go over the speed limit like a little bit, but it's pretty boring, pretty plain. Daniel Jones is going to complete all the passes he should. It's going to be a lot of like short 4-yard throws down the field, but he'll do everything that Shane Steichen asks of him, just like how your Toyota Camry does everything that you ask of it, gets good gas mileage, all that kind of stuff. And like one's just way cooler, and if it needs to, can outrun everybody. And that is who Anthony Richardson is. Like if he needs to, he's probably not to that point in his development yet. But in theory, there will come a day where you can look at Anthony and be like, hey, man, like, we need you to do some cool Anthony Richardson type stuff right here. And he's going to be like, all right, I can do that. And that's just not a gear that Daniel Jones has. And look, he hasn't had it in 6 years. I highly doubt that he's just going to wake up one day and be like, you know what? I have enough talent now to maybe be one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, it's not going to happen. He's going to run the offense, kind of do the bare minimum, and that's going to be that. So, seems like Anthony Richardson is kind of carving out a path for him to be the starting quarterback. That's a good thing, Colts fans, because if he can be the guy, then you don't have to worry about drafting a quarterback next year. You don't have to overreact to everything that Arch Manning does at Texas. By the way, in case you forgot, college football starts this month, right? Starts 2 weeks away from Saturday. It's going to be great. Can't wait for it. It's going to be awesome. When we come back here in about 4 minutes or so, Adonai Mitchell had a day. Was just an absolute stud, apparently. And I think there's just some Anthony Richardson stuff with him. There's a lot of Anthony Richardson stuff with him. I think there's a lot of similarities. I'll tell you what those are when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. You can head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, if you are in the Indianapolis area, 1430 a.m., check it out right there. Now, Adonai Mitchell has really kind of taken, a bit of social media by storm. He had a bit of a day yesterday. I saw one Colts writer say, it looks like AD got his swagger back. I don't know about that. Like, he's just having a good training camp. And that's cool. That's important. But can we also remember AD Mitchell had a really good training camp last year. And we were all very excited. Like, oh, AD Mitchell about to show up, take the world by storm. Offensive Rookie of the Year. Is he better than Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze and Marvin Harrison Jr.? He might be. I don't think people said that, but you get the point. There was way too much excitement, way too much hype over AD Mitchell last year, all based off of some good training camp reps. You have to have something a little bit more than that for me to get excited. And I think what we're doing with him is pretty similar to what we do with Anthony Richardson. It's like, hey, look at what he can be. Let's leave reality. Let's wander over to what if land and see what they look like. And for AD Mitchell, like, the what if is really nice. Fast, athletic, can make contested catches, separates really well. There's just a lot of like, oh man, like if he could just put it all together, if he could just hold on to the football when he gets hit, if he could just have a, good attitude in interviews after he throws a game-changing pick six against the Denver Broncos, if only he could do X, Y, Z, and so on. Now, I'm not saying that him having like a good training camp is a bad thing. Like that's obviously a very good thing. And I hope that AD Mitchell continues to have a good training camp, because the Colts right now have nothing but specialists at wide receiver. Like, they all seem to just do like one thing well. AD Mitchell, he's not like that. He's a combination of really all three of the receivers. Josh Downs is he's an excellent route runner, right? He creates separation and then he catches. And because he creates separation and he's as fast as he is, he can create a little bit after the catch. AD Mitchell, in theory, in this fantasy world, he can do that as well. Michael Pittman Jr. separates really well at the top of routes. So because of that, he kind of owns the middle of the field. And in fantasy land, AD Mitchell can do that too. Alec Pierce, deep threat, blazing fast, long, athletic, can go up and he makes contested catches with his, with his size and everything. And in fantasy land, AD Mitchell can do those things as well. And that's great. That's awesome. I'm glad that the Colts have a guy in AD Mitchell where there's potential oozing out of him. That's really cool. I think that's a good thing. But eventually potential has to turn into reality. It does. At some point you got to be like, man, he's really figured it out and he's going to catch 90 balls this year and for, 1,000 yards. So glad that AD Mitchell finally figured it out. And we're doing the same thing with Anthony Richardson right now. It's like, oh man, look at the arm strength and the size and the speed. And there's just so much talent oozing out of that dude. If he can just figure it out. And you can't say that for forever. Eventually you have to say, man, I'm so glad that Anthony Richardson figured it out. He completed 65% of his passes this year and he threw 30 touchdowns and he only threw, 10 interceptions and he also ran for 500 yards and he stayed healthy all year. Eventually you have to say that about every prospect. This isn't just a Colts thing. This is about everybody. And so eventually AD Mitchell has to actually produce in the games that actually matter, not in training camp and not in the preseason. And it's really exciting what AD Mitchell can maybe do. Because the best receivers in the NFL can do multiple things. Like Puka Nacua is a beast over the middle because he's a big physical receiver. And because he's big and physical, he's also really good at making contested catches down the field. And he's also very dynamic after the catch. Jamar Chase is the best run after catch guy in the NFL. He's blazing fast so he can stretch the field. He's big and he's strong so he can go up and make contested catches. You know, like him on those shallow or deep routes. It's like good luck dealing with that dude. Okay. Justin Jefferson is a pristine route runner. And because of his size and length, he can make contested catches, even if he's got like a slightly smaller frame compared to some of these other receivers. You know, but because he's such a good route runner and his hands are so good, like good luck covering that guy. He can run every route. Tyreek Hill, speed guy, right, who stretches the field, but he's also incredibly quick. And so he just creates so much separation when he runs routes. Like he does multiple things well. And Adonai Mitchell is the only receiver on this Colts roster who could potentially, because that is still sadly the word that we're having to use with him, who could still potentially do multiple things well. It just has to translate onto the field. And we haven't seen that happen quite yet. And at some point, like it has to translate. And at some point, Chris Ballard has to actually put a good football team on the field. He was asked about, the 4-year playoff drought in some special he did on local Indianapolis TV. And here's what he had to say about it.
Chris, I hate to bring up these numbers, but I know you probably have them up on a board. Last division title, 2014. Last playoff appearance, 2020. Last playoff win, 2018. Mm-hmm. What do those numbers mean to you, and how does that affect the way you do things?
Well, I just told the group in there, it's the first time I've ever been that long. And then we've had, in 21 and 23, we got destiny in our hands and we didn't finish it. And even last year, last 4 or 5 games of the season, we were really last 3 games, we're right in the mix. And if we do what we're supposed to do, we're going to be in the mix. So it's frustrating. And our city deserves better. They deserve a playoff team that they can root for.
What has to happen for that to change? I know you said finishing strong.
Yeah.
It's paramount.
Like I've always said, that the team that blocks and tackles and doesn't turn the ball over usually gives themselves a pretty good chance to win. It's not a hard game. It's not.
It's not a hard game, guys, according to Chris Ballard right there. Just the general manager who's failed to get this Colts team to the playoffs for the last 4 years. And look, there's a lot of stuff to be upset about. I'm going to play this clip for Dan at some point during the day, and Dan will have his rant on it and all that kind of stuff. Here's the thing that bothers me the most about Chris Ballard whenever he talks about this. He talks as if those teams were good. All those Colts teams that have missed the playoffs, none of them were good. None of them. None of them. It's like, if we can just do what we're supposed to do. The issue is the guys on the other side of the field, Chris, they're being paid to do what they're supposed to do. And usually the better team with better players and better coaches and all that kind of stuff, usually that's the team that's better at doing their jobs, doing what they're supposed to do. And it just bothers me. The fact that he thinks that he's built good teams that have missed the playoffs. And that's not the reality. When almost half the league makes the playoffs, if you miss the playoffs, you were therefore not a good team. Average 9-8, 8-9 is not good. Like, that's not a good football team. It's not. It never has been, and it never will be. You know what a good football team is now? 11-6, 12-5. Not 10-7. No, 11-6, 12-5. It's very rare that you find good football teams that win it's very rare that you find bad football teams that win 11 or 12 games. And you say, well, what about 10 games? So here's the thing with winning 10 games. There are 14 teams that make the playoffs. And because they've expanded it, there are now years where a team will get in. And I'm just like, I don't think they're really very good. And then the opening line comes out and the Bills are favored over the Broncos by 9.5. It's like, and then they play the game, and the Bills win by 24, 31-7. And you're like, oh, yeah, Broncos probably not playoff good. The Colts haven't built a good team in the last 4 years. They haven't. And you know how I know that? Because they haven't made the playoffs. It is impossible to build a good football team in the NFL. It's impossible to build a good football team and not make the playoffs. Right? And a good football team isn't just the starters, because when you look at the Colts and you run through the depth chart and you look at all the starters, like, you feel pretty good about it, especially on offense. Like, you feel good about Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman and Josh Downs and Alec Pierce and Tyler Warren and Bernard Raymond just got an extension, and Quentin Nelson's a really good left guard, and Tanner Bortolini was pretty good last year for some stretches, and Matt Gonsalves was okay, and Braden Smith's been in the league for a while, and like, you look at the starters, and it's hard to like not kind of like what they got going on there. You know, the defense, it's a little bit tougher to like with guys like Kwity Paye and Leatu Latu doesn't really seem to be coming around that much. But, you know, Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner are at least decent players. And Zaire Franklin did lead the league in tackles last year, as much of a hard time as I give him. And Javarius Ward's been the best corner on a team that played in the Super Bowl. And Cam Bynum was the starting safety on a team that won 14 games last year, and all that kind of stuff. And like, that's cool. That's great. The issue is depth. And a team isn't just the 22 guys who start for you, because like the starters for the Colts are like, yeah, feel pretty good about them. But I think everyone feels good about their starters in the freaking NFL. For the most part, they do. The issue is the lack of depth. And our guy, Chris Ballard, simply, the whole like, we've been close. We've been in the mix. When half the league makes the playoffs, everyone is in the mix all year long. And it's so incredibly annoying hearing him say that time and time again. Hopefully, the Indiana Hoosiers are in the mix for a national title this year. First year under Coach DeVries. They're currently down in Puerto Rico playing games. And I hope word gets back that they're just crushing teams. I hope they're just dogging teams, beating them by 50. You know, walk-ons are getting some opportunities to play and all that kind of stuff. So I just, that's the hope. We'll see. Aaron Torres said yesterday that Coach DeVries has apparently put together a pretty good team, you know, shooting. Like, that's going to kind of be the strong suit, which is going to be really nice. Like, it's going to be great. It's going to be fun watching an Indiana basketball team get some open looks, and just to be able to sit and watch with the expectation that the shots are going to go in at some point. Like that's going to be a really nice change of pace from what we've seen with Mike Woodson. So hopefully we hear some good news on the Indiana basketball down there in Puerto Rico. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Very excited for the show tomorrow. We're going to talk about the preseason game, Anthony Richardson. What are we looking for? What matters? What doesn't? We're going to get into all of that. Frank Schwab from Yahoo Sports, he's going to join me tomorrow. Very excited to have him on. He wrote some stuff on the Colts that I'm very intrigued and looking forward to. You know, he wrote some stuff more specifically on Anthony Richardson, so he's going to be really good to have on. So Frank Schwab tomorrow. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next here in about 5 minutes. Head over to YouTube, subscribe to the Indies Sports Ticket YouTube page. That'd be greatly, greatly appreciated. And I'll talk to you tomorrow starting at 10 a.m.